All right, so we talked about this idea of deviation from the norm, and this kind of part of what's built into this notion of disorder. We looked at antisocial disorder and saw how we have anyone who deviates from what society deems to be correct, the status quo. That has a suggestion that you might have a psychological brain disorder. Now I want to move on to ADHD here, so give me 1 second to open this up. So we're looking again in the DSM, which is the official Bible of these scientists called psychologists. So let's open this up. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we've got attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. This is the controversy in this one. I'm very pleased about. There's actually a large amount of people that have a problem with this, which says to me that at least somebody's questioning. So this is the famous ADHD, which is supposed to be when kids don't pay attention in class. So we see here stuff just like that. They actually talk about that. Part of the problem is often fails to give close attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work. Has difficulty remaining focused on lectures. Here is what we call something scientific, and it's dependent upon the existence of a thing called school. So since when does the neurons of the brain and its pathologies depend upon the existence of a system called school? This does not sound like a very biological study to me. If we're examining, we're saying, well, this person is not, they're maladaptive. How are they maladaptive? Well, they're not adapted to school. Oh, they're not adapted to school? Okay, well, school is an artificial creation, right? It hasn't always been in existence, in fact. They don't, they're not subordinate kind of thing, almost. Again, they're not talking about subordination in this one quite so much as with conduct disorder. But I get that same sense though, like you're meant to, like your brain is meant to function well in school or something. But we were born in nature. We weren't born in school, right? And in nature, you're in the forest, right? You don't have to pay attention to some lecture or do your homework in the forest. In fact, and I think a lot of people have said this before. I'm not the first person to say this, but ADHD, I think, would be very helpful to have maybe in the forest, right? If you're in the forest, you might be, always looking around and that kind of thing. And maybe if there's a predator in the forest, that'd be a good trait to have. In fact, it might be more adaptive to our natural environment. So, again, interesting with antisocial and with ADHD is almost kind of this thing of like compliance, I feel like. ADHD not so much, but there is this kind of thing of, well, if you are not suited towards this arena where we expect you to perform in certain ways, then you're disordered. And with ADHD, it's disturbing, because the cure, you guys know that the cure is to give students drugs, and I think that the drug is similar to cocaine. If I'm correct, I'm not sure. I'm totally right on that. I think that's what I've heard though. And we've legalized this, and it's become an expectation. I've seen teachers do this, where they're like, oh, well, Joey needs to have that drug, and they'll even scold Joey and say, Joey, have you been using your drugs today? I think society has mentioned this controversy a little bit, but is it really aware of how perverse this is, of how far we've gone through this? This really is kind of that idea again of society trying to control. And people would say, well, these are psychologists, these are scientists, that's not what they're about. and they may not be. I'm not saying that psychologists are sitting around trying to, like they're in cahoots with the government or something like that, and they're like, well, we need to control or something like that. But man, it's weird that psychologists would be sitting here making these kind of determinations. But there is some politics involved in this too. You got to remember that the funding of science, and this is no joke. Believe me, I've seen this. Science is funded by government agencies very often, and so when you see stuff like this, it very well could be the hand of the government involved. And that's why you're seeing all this research in this area. It's incentivized. I think it's incentivized by teachers, probably, or at least people in the education world, because they want to increase their SPED numbers. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but special education, right? So there's this whole area of academia, in high school and middle school and stuff like that, the public schools, where they are trying to, they have special education programs, and what happens is you'll have kids in there, and the teacher will want to say, well, I think this student belongs in special education, because in special education we get to, if you put them in this program, there's a higher chance of them getting better grades, and better grades means more funding, better funding, less stress for the teachers. And so I think there is a push to get students to be diagnosed with some of these, and the push comes from teachers, and teachers are in government, and government goes all the way to the Department of Education, right? I mean, I know it sounds kind of a conspiracy theory-ish to say that, but I do think some of those forces are at play. I don't think of it, that it's all like a devious kind of overlord kind of thing. But I think the system just over time it gradually becomes that. So yeah, so we've done antisocial disorder, we've done ADHD. Let's take a look at another one in the next video.